myself a little bit of breakfast, and I thought while I'm waiting for the tea kettle to boil, I would take the opportunity to say good morning to you and to thank you for joining me today on my YouTube channel. And I thought I would just run through what the plan of the morning is. I thought we would spend the morning together. So first things first, I'm going to have some breakfast. I've just got my little quiche. I meal prep quiches for the week for breakfast. So I've just got that in the oven behind me heating up. I'm making myself a cup of green tea. And then what I thought we would do is head to the garden centre. I actually need to get some more of the organic soil. I know in the last video we got the kitchen garden beds all ready to go, and I pretty much used all of my soil for that. And I've got a couple of projects that I'm wanting to do, so I wanted to top up and get a little bit more soil. And then I know I said in the last video that in this video we would be getting in and planting all the seeds and the seedlings in the kitchen garden bed, but I have changed my mind. What I think I need to do next is set up the worm buffet. Now, if you're wondering what is a worm buffet, I think it's going to be easier for me to show you rather than explain it to you. So you're going to need to stay tuned for the video and we will set up the worm buffet together. Very, very quickly, it's basically what I'm seeing as the beginner's steps into composting. You know, I have been really keen for this season to work on improving my soil and improving the nutrients in my soil. And one way I'm keen to do that is to start composting. Composting has always seemed just quite challenging. Whenever I've researched it, you know, they've talked about needing different layers. You need, you know, cardboards and paper, you need soil, you need leaves and twigs and things. Then you need, you know, kitchen scraps, and you've got to turn it so many times. And it all seemed a little bit stressful for a beginner in composting. So the worm buffet that we actually purchased together maybe a week or two ago now is what I'm sort of seeing as the beginner first step into composting. So I wanted to set that up together today. I think it would be best to set that up because the worm buffet will actually be inserted into the kitchen garden beds. And I think we'll get that in first before we put in all the seeds and seedlings, because I don't want to put all of them in and then have to move something around depending on where I put the worm buffet. So that's basically the plan of action today, is that I'm going to have some breakfast and then we'll head to the garden centre, we'll get some soil, I'll show you around and we'll see what's new at the garden centre, and then we're going to come back and we're going to open up the box for the worm buffet and kind of just work out how you sort of assemble it and how we install it. We'll have to kind of dig a hole in the kitchen garden beds and then, you know, insert it in there. But again, we'll do that all together and I'm sure it will make much more sense once we've got the box and we've got the instructions. So my teapot is just starting to boil, so I'm going to pour my tea, get myself sort of a bit more organised, have some breakfast, and then we are going to head off. And it should be a really lovely day. So that's going to be the plan for this video, and then in the next video, once the worm buffet is in, then yes, we're going to get all the seeds and the seedlings in, and it's going to look so lovely with all the new growths in there. I'm very, very excited. You all know that. I'm very excited to get growing in there after several months of pretty much very low produce. I've had leeks and I've had onions and spring onions and those sorts of things, but I sort of haven't had beetroots or kale or spinach, cucumbers, all that kind of stuff for, gosh, since probably October-ish last year. So I'm very excited for that. So yes, I'm gonna pour my tea and then we will have some breakfast and head off. So breakfast has been had and I've just popped some chicken in the slow cooker to make up like some chicken salads and things for lunch. And before we head to the garden centre, what I thought we would do is actually open up this worm buffet box just so I can make sure I have everything I need. I don't want to go to the garden centre first, come home, unbox this and then realise I need something else. So let's get into this box now, have a little look at it, see, fingers crossed, hopefully how easy it is to assemble. It looks fairly straightforward, but yes, so I might bring the camera a bit closer so you can actually see sort of the box and like the individual parts as I pull them out and how I'm kind of assembling it. But yes, so this is, as I said, the worm buffet. So it's you obviously bury this bit into the ground and it has a little lid on it to make it animal safe. So if you have like cats or dogs, or you have wild animals, so I have, you know, possums and things that come at night, when you're putting the scraps in it, you want to be able to put the lid on so that animals aren't kind of getting in there and digging up the scraps that you've put in there. And then basically this bit's under the soil, the little lid is on top, and then you pop your kitchen scraps in, and then through holes in the base of this, the worms kind of just come through and eat the scraps and kind of turn them into a really good compost. It seems very simple, very easy to do, so I'm incredibly excited and just truly fingers crossed that it is this simple, that it works really well. I was recommended this by a friend. They currently have, I think, about 3 or 4 of these and rated them super highly and said that they were very easy to use. They, the compost broke down really well in the garden beds, and obviously the worms loved it, and you're kind of recycling your kitchen scraps and able to, you know, give them a new purpose in life, which is always a really good thing instead of wasting them. So as my first foray into composting, I'm hoping that this is going to be a good first step. So as I said, I will leave this linked in the description box down below in the event that you're interested in it, in the event that you're also a beginner composter. I'm sure a lot of you have been composting for years, and I'm sure you've got those really big bins and, you know, you've got a whole system for it. But just so I don't get overwhelmed right off the bat, I think that this is going to be a really good first step. So I'm going to bring the camera forward a little bit now, just so you can kind of see it a bit more in detail, and then we will unbox this. All right, hopefully you can see that. So that is just the front of the box, and that's just probably a better picture of what I was sort of mentioning just then. So you can see here that this bit goes under the ground, and then you've got the lid here on top. It's all made from recycled plastics. And as I said, it seems really straightforward. The instructions say that it's really easy to install. What you can, like the types of items that you can pop in here are veggie peelings, leafy green vegetables, fruit cores and peelings, tea bags, coffee grounds, eggshells, newspaper and shredded paper, vacuum cleaner dust, and small amounts of citrus and onion. So that seems perfect. That's pretty much all the stuff that I have and that I, you know, use regularly. And then just to show you the back of the box, and you can kind of see there, it looks very simple, which is brilliant. It also says on the box that it recycles between 1 and 2 kilos of organic kitchen waste every week. So every week you can add 1 to 2 kilos of waste into the little top section here. It's perfect for install in raised garden beds and vegetable beds, which is brilliant. That is where I'm intending to install it. Easy to use, self-fertilizes plants and enriches the soil, and it's all made from recycled packaging. So let's get into this box. So that is the lid. Okay. So that is everything in the box. So that is very straightforward. And you're basically just hooking it together. There we go. Like so. Alright, so hopefully that is a better position and you can now see the entire assembled tumbleweed worm buffet. I'm incredibly pleased with how easy it was to assemble. Was not difficult at all. You saw I basically just clicked it together and that was it. It does, so that's the little lid there. You can see, hopefully it's coming across on camera, but you can see it's got all of these little holes around sort of the lower half of the compost bin, worm buffet, whatever we're wanting to call it. So that's so that the worms can get in there and then kind of get up to those kitchen scraps and then start the composting process and starting to break them down and kind of utilizing them for nutrients in the soil. So that is very good. The lid just clicks on super easy. The lid is also fairly strong and hardy, which is the other little thing that I would just say. So this is going in my raised kitchen garden beds, and you know my beds are pretty much just sitting, they're raised up, but they're sitting on the ground. So I already have a large number of worms in my kitchen garden bed because they can just kind of come up from the soil. If you're wanting to put something like this in a raised bed that is completely raised, as in it's not sitting on the ground, like there's airflow underneath the bed, you may have to purchase the composting worms as well. It does say on the box here to purchase 500 composting worms. I just didn't do that because I already have so many worms, so I just didn't think it was necessary. The other thing that it does recommend is the bedding block and the compost conditioner. I also didn't purchase any of those. I phoned a friend and I just asked her whether she had done the same thing, and she said she didn't at all. She just did this and that it was working really well. So I really just want to keep this very simple, very streamlined. I don't want to put too much pressure on myself. As I've said, this is my very first step into composting, so I'm very much a beginner, very much learning. I'm sure all of you are all having composting for ages. I know some of you have incredible gardens yourself and are incredible gardeners, and you, as I said, probably already composting, but this is my very first step into it, so we're going to be learning together. I'm very happy that it is easy. It was very easy to assemble. And the other little thing I suppose I would just say is your raised beds are going to have to be deep enough for this to be pretty much submerged in the dirt. So the dirt layer is this here. Hopefully you can see this sort of ridge here. So it needs to be, this whole part needs to be buried in the dirt. And then this bit here is the only bit that is above ground. So you just need to make sure that your raised bed is going to be deep enough for this to actually fit. Now, I'm very pleased that I did not need any additional, accessories to go with this. So we could technically just go out now and pop this in the kitchen garden. But the weather has actually just turned and it is currently raining. So I don't want to go out there and in the rain and do this. So what I think we will do is tidy up my mess here, and then we might actually head to the garden centre first, have a little poke around, see what's, what they've got there, and then get my soil. We'll come home, and hopefully by the time we come home, the rain will have passed. I think it's just a shower. We had a lot of rain last night, so hopefully this is just a little shower. And then when we get home, we will go outside and we will dig this into the kitchen garden bed. I'm very excited to see how this goes. I'll probably give it like a few months with just one, just to sort of see how it works, how it breaks down the kitchen scraps. And then once, if it works and I'm happy with it, I probably will get maybe like another 2 and have 3 going, just so that, again, I really am trying to work on systems that can enrich my soil and add a lot more nutrients back into my soil. So if this is a simple, easy way to do that, I am on board with it. So yes. All right, it is the day for changes of plan. It has just come kind of sunny, but you can see over there that is very ominous black clouds. So I think I'm just going to race out quickly now and try and dig this hole. Hopefully it is relatively easy to dig. We shall see. Try and get that in the ground. And then it occurs to me that I actually don't have like a bin to store the kitchen scraps in.
I know I could probably just pop them on a paper towel and then bring them out sort of each day, but I think it's just going to be easier to have a bin in the kitchen where I can put, you know, coffee grounds, tea bags, that kind of thing, as, you know, a few days go by, and then I can just take out bulk and pop it into the worm buffet. So I'm not going to go to the sort of closer, smaller garden centre. I'm actually going to go to a larger garden centre this afternoon because they do have those little kitchen sort of composting bins there. Ooh, butterfly. So let's just come down here and see if we can dig a hole in the ground. All right. I have started to try and dig a hole. It is incredibly difficult. The dirt is very packed down and there seems to be like little rocks and things in there. So I'm just getting a slightly smaller shovel and we will see how this goes. Okay, I'm not gonna lie, that was an absolute mission. That was the most awkward positioning I could have picked in this back corner. So just to quickly show you where I'm popping it, sort of in this little back corner here where the garden arch used to be. I just thought it's off the main path, but it is close enough to like a pathway in terms of access for popping in kitchen scraps. But what an awkward little corner to put it in. You just could not get a good hand on the shovel. And then the other complicating factor of having it in this little corner was, as you know, you're digging down, the irrigation was there, and there's actually a main irrigation pipe just through here. So we had a mild panic in thinking that we had cut through the irrigation pipe, but just tested it and it seems to be fine. All the irrigation seems to be working fine. So we really can't go any deeper, but if I just show you at the moment, that is basically where we've got the hole at the moment. So I think once we have backfilled the soil in, we might just, it's probably cheating, but we might just mound the soil up to this line because we just cannot go any deeper with that irrigation down there. And it is actually starting to rain again. So that is the positioning. That is how it's currently looking. It was an absolute mission. You don't realize how deep 40 centimeter is until you have to dig it in a hole. So before it starts to bucket down, I'm just gonna really quickly backfill this hole and then I will show you the end result. All right, just standing back a little bit so that you can see the positioning. I just felt having it in a back corner like that, it will just be easy access. You could potentially put it in the center of your garden bed, but if you did that and there were going to be tall plants around it, you would just find it more difficult to access. Whereas I kind of thought in a corner there, it would be easier to get to drop your kitchen scraps into. And then, as I said, kind of came unstuck a little bit as we got quite deep down, in that the main irrigation pipe was there. So we couldn't kind of go any deeper, but I think it looks okay. You can see we've sort of, I'll take you closer in a moment. You can see we're kind of up to that ridge line there, but the soil is kind of mounded. So when I pop to the garden centre this afternoon and we get some additional soil, I will just add it to this section as well, just kind of even out the soil level across this whole section. But yes, you know, it is fairly deep in the ground. All the little wormholes are covered, and you can see just to that rim there. Goodness, it was certainly a workout and an absolute mission, but it is in now and I'm very happy with that. I'm happy that it's kind of tucked at the back too. Once this bed is full of like beetroots and kale and spinach and all of that, it will kind of mask it. This fluoro green isn't exactly my favorite, but it's going to be a very practical use. And as I said, I really just want to test it for like a few months, see how it goes, and then potentially consider maybe getting some for some other areas. I'm thinking kind of the citrus trees. So just to show you, the lid just comes off and you can see here, you just pop your kitchen scraps in a little hole, and then the worms sort of come through the walls there, through those holes, and help break it all down. And then you can just pop the lid back on like so. So we'll see how that goes. I will obviously keep you posted, but it is starting to rain getting a bit heavier now. But yeah, if that works really well here, I'm thinking somewhere in this section where all the citrus trees are might be really nice as well. And it would be quite well hidden in this place. Or I'm going to head inside now, and then this afternoon we are going to head to the larger garden centre, and I'm going to get the soil, and I'm going to see if I can get a just really small bin for in the kitchen so I can put my composting scraps in there. So I'll bring you along for that anyway. Just super quickly before I get absolutely rained on, how gorgeous. Look at those colours. The roses are looking incredible at the moment, all throughout the garden. I can smell them, like the perfume is so strong. So this corner smells absolutely lovely. Okay, we have arrived at the garden centre and we've had a little look at the compost bins, and I'm going to be honest, was not happy with any of them. None of them had like the airtight seal on them. They were basically just like a little tiny bin, like a bin caddy for the kitchen, which I'm just not super happy about. And then I was looking at the reviews, and a lot of people were saying that, you know, when you're storing it in the kitchen, even if it's just like overnight and that, it brings like little insects. I know there's sort of like little flying insects and that. I have had them before with certain indoor plants, and I hate having them inside. So I think we're just not going to get a caddy. And what we'll do is when we're composting and we've got kitchen scraps to go into the compost worm buffet, we will just take it out straight away. We're not going to keep it in the kitchen. I think that's just, yeah. But we've come into the garden plant section, and what we have found is this absolute gorgeousness. If I can find the tag, 1 second. So it is a Lysianthus, and look at the jewel colour on it. Isn't that just stunning? I'm going to pot that up and put that in the kitchen as like a little kind of floral display in the kitchen for Easter. I think that that's just really pretty, and they say the flowers are really long lasting, so once the flowers go, I will then plant it out in the garden. But absolutely gorgeous. I'll show you when I get home what it looks like or pot it up. They've got their hibiscus out. Look how big these blooms are. Beautiful pink blooms. They've got all the little buds out. Gorgeous. Oh gosh. Look at this red one down here. That's just amazing.
All right, I am home from the garden centre, and as I said while we were there, I didn't end up getting a compost sort of little bin for in the kitchen here. What they, like the selection that they had there was basically just bins. It was just basically little tiny bins. I think I might have got a couple of clips. If I did, you will have seen them. And they didn't sort of suppress the smell. And the other thing, I was reading the reviews when I was in the store, a lot of people spoke about was that even if you just leave it over kind of night or like for 2 nights, it really does attract like flying insects. So I'm assuming like fruit flies and things like that. I don't want that inside the house. So I think what we're going to probably do is I might just get sort of a designated little bowl that I just know that that's like my little compost bowl, and that I will bring it out when I'm doing like meal prepping or cooking and things. And I'll just sort of pop it to the side here, and then as I've got, you know, carrot tops or, you know, onion peel or coffee grounds, tea bags, that kind of thing, I'll just pop them straight into the little bowl, and then I'll get into the habit of, at the end of the day, I'll just go out and I'll just pop it into the little worm buffet. I think that's going to work the best. I think it will mean that there's no smell in the kitchen, we've got no sort of insects, we're not sort of attracting any insects or anything like that. So I'm going to trial that, and fingers crossed that that works really well. So I've got the soil, you would have seen that. I picked up a bunch of like the organic potting mix. I'm wanting to top up, again, as I said earlier, I want to top up that bed a little bit, and then over the next couple of weeks I've actually got a number of garden projects that I want to get started, and I'm going to need a fair bit of potting soil for that. We'll do all those garden projects together, and you know, they might inspire you for little projects for yourself. There'll definitely be ones that, even if you don't have a large garden space, you know, you might just have a patio, or you might have a windowsill, or you know, that kind of thing. Hopefully they'll inspire you to maybe, you know, even just get one pot of things, you know, little plants or herbs or strawberries or something like that. So we'll be doing that over the next couple of weeks together. But you would have seen as well, they had some absolutely stunning florals out in the actual sort of outdoor garden area. And I picked up these Lysianthus with, look at that, look at those petals with like the purple edging and the white and the little yellow centers. Just gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous. They also had like a dusky, sort of a red color, and I think just plain white and maybe like a pale pink, but I would have shown you that in the clips. The garden centre was packed. Couldn't believe it, there were so many people there. So it was very hard to film, because literally for most of the time that I was outside, there were like people on either side of me looking at the plants, because they had some really gorgeous things. I guess everyone was just out and about wanting to get things. But I'm very, very happy with this display. They were, I think the little punnet was like $10 for this. And I just think $10 for basically this stunning live bouquet of flowers. They'll last much longer than a bouquet will. They're a lot cheaper. And I'll have them, yeah, for hopefully quite a number of weeks. This spot gets a lot of the afternoon sun, which will be brilliant. They do like full sun. They obviously won't be getting full sun, but they will get afternoon sun, and I'll just make sure I keep the water up. And then once they've sort of finished their beautiful floral display, I'll plant it out in the garden in a full sun position, so that we will get this gorgeousness again next season. But yeah, very happy with that. Very Easter vibes, I think. And the little pot that I've placed it in is just one that I have here for such occasions. So often if I go to the garden centre and I see a really beautiful, like almost, you know, living bouquet of flowers, I do buy them. And I've got a number of these. I've got obviously this style. I've got a green one that's like a pot and it's all leaves. Yeah, you'll see them over the coming months, no doubt. But yes, I'm very happy with that purchase. And on that note, I'm probably going to leave the video here. It has been, it's been a little bit over the place today. Been a lot of change of plans. It's been a little bit hectic, a little bit busy. And the weather's just been so unusual. It's now kind of sunny, there's blue sky out there, but I'm sure it will rain again in another hour. So yeah, I hope you have enjoyed it. Thank you so much for spending the time with me. I am going to bring the camera closer and I'll give you a really nice close-up of these flowers. But I did just want to say again, thank you so much. I hope you are enjoying these gardening videos. I'm really enjoying filming them. I'm really enjoying spending the time with you all. So I will see you in the next video. Bye.